Hi, it's Ben for learningsurfphotography.com, and I'm going to give you a really quick 5-minute review of the Samyang f2.8 8mm fisheye lens, and specifically talking about surf photography. That's what I use it for mostly. Show you a couple of examples of other stuff which I've done with it which isn't surf, but 99% of the time when I'm using this fisheye lens, I've got it in a water housing. So first of all, there might be a little bit of confusion about this lens because it's manufactured by a company called Samyang. They also brand their lenses as Rokinon and some other brands as well. But I think this f2.8 fisheye lens 8mm is most likely to turn up with Samyang or Rokinon on it. So I'll put some links below to the various ones. At the moment, looking at Amazon, if you went for the Rokinon branded lens, then you're going to save about $5, about $270 either way. So quite a good value lens, and the reason you'd buy one for surf photography is for using it in the water to get a super wide angle, lots of distortion, making kind of small waves look big. Sometimes it makes big waves look small. But yeah, basically for super close-up shots in the water, wide angle shots of empty waves, the classic kind of fisheye view that you see in a lot of surf photos. They make that for a variety of different APS-C sized sensor lens mounts. The one I'm using it on is a Sony E mount. I use it with a Sony a6000. So that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about, and all the samples you see will be from a Sony a6000. They also make it for the Fuji X mount, the Samsung NX mount, and the Canon EF-M, their mirrorless style mount. They make a 7.5mm for the Micro Four Thirds mount for Panasonic and Olympus shooters. So that's that out of the way. You know probably which one it is. You might get a little bit confused as well because there's two versions. This is the version 1, the original, and this is the version 2. And as you can see, there is a little bit of difference in the size. This version 2 is about a centimetre longer, including the built-in non-take-offable, definitely not the right word, non-removable lens hoods. They're not really lens hoods, they're just to protect it. If you put it down on the table, then that protects the lens element on the front because it's quite a big curved element. So yeah, essentially if you wanted to use one of these lenses, you need an appropriate port. So you'll be looking at something like this one on the Liquid IC6000, which is compatible with the version 1, or this one on a Salty basic housing, which is compatible with the version 2. When you're in the water, a few people have asked me, is it a bit hit and miss with getting focus with these lenses? And that's because they're manual focus. So they have dials, rings rather, on the lens itself, one for aperture, f2.8 being the widest, up to f22, and then one for focus. So you've got minimum focus distance, it's 0.3 meters, so 30 centimeters, about a foot. That's the closest it'll focus, and then obviously out to infinity. It's got a little line on the scale where infinity is, and it goes a little bit beyond that. So if you're taking things like astrophotography, nighttime photography of stars and the Milky Way and things, which I have dabbled with a little bit with this lens, then you want to just hit that line out with infinity, and probably go down to f2.8 so you can get the most light into it. But generally speaking, settings for surf photography, and this goes for both types of lenses, they're both f2.8, both have the same sort of dials on them. So just quickly, the differences are, there's a couple of extra, or one or two, I'm not sure, extra elements inside this version 2 lens, which apparently gives it slightly better image quality, and effectively makes it not quite as wide as the version 1. In reality, I've tested them both in the surf, in relatively small hollow waves. I can't tell the difference. I could literally be looking at either of the shots and I wouldn't be able to tell you which one was which. They're both great image quality, and they're both really, really wide, super wide. So I was used to shooting with a Tokina 10 to 17mm fisheye on my Canon APS-C bodies, so the 60D, 70D, 7D, and I shot that at 10mm, as wide as possible, got some really great results with it, and I prefer the look of the 8mm, just that little bit wider, gives you the ability to kind of almost see into and out of the barrel at the same time with one shot if you get the angle right. So back to manual focus. A few people have asked me about it. it's good that this lens is manual focus. When I was shooting with the Tokina, which is an autofocus fisheye, I would, 90% of the time, I would set the focus manually, switch it to manual focus and tape it in position when I took surf photos with it. And that's because with a fisheye lens, a super wide lens like this, like an 8mm, the depth of field, which is the range of distance away from the lens in which objects will be in focus, that depth of field is really big with a wide angle lens. So what that means in practice is, if I set this lens to 1 meter on the focus scale, and if it's bright sunshine, I'll set it to f8 on the aperture. So that's kind of stopped down quite a lot from its widest aperture of f2.8. If I do that, and if I put my camera in shutter priority mode, so I set the shutter and auto ISO, and I set the shutter to 1/1000th of a second or faster, then I can pretty much point this in the general direction of anything, pull the trigger, and I'll get a series of shots where everything is in focus. So it's a lot easier to do that. You get better results doing that than you would do if you had an autofocus fisheye, which would be trying to hunt for focus. It would be trying to find an element in the frame. I've experienced that before, where it's actually focused, especially the Tokina, because it focuses so close, it can focus on the dome itself. So if there's a speck of sand or something on the dome, it can focus on that and everything else will be blurry. It doesn't happen when it's in manual focus. So one of the downsides of that is if you're shooting underwater, then you need to focus much closer because of the dome, and there's optical effects which mean essentially you have to focus a lot closer. So you can't really shoot over and underwater in the same session with this lens unless you have some way of changing the focus manually from within the housing, which I don't have yet. So yeah, if you're thinking about getting a fisheye for an APS-C camera, A6000 for instance, go for the Samyang or Rokinon f2.8 8mm fisheye. It is fantastic, it's light, it's tiny, it's really good value, about $270. So just, yeah, an amazing piece of kit really. I was really happy with it. I've shot with the Tokina on Canon bodies, I've shot with the Canon 15mm fisheye as well. And this definitely stands up to those in terms of image quality, and it's just half the size of the Tokina, I'd say. Might be exaggerating a little bit, but it just, yeah, I mean, look at it, it looks tiny. Version 2 as well. I mean, it's a little bit bigger, but it's still tiny. So just make sure you get the one which is better for your dome port. I'll put up some sample shots as I'm going through this video. I'll be putting them up. There'll be a blog post on learningsurfphotography.com, which will also feature some shots, some samples. I'll try and pull out a few non-surfing shots as well, but as I say, 90% of the time when I've got this on my camera, it's in a water housing and I'm getting those super wide angle, distorted in the barrel shots. So that's really all there is to it. Manual focus fisheye, very easy to get shots that are crisp and in focus. So then all you'll need to worry about is getting in the right position and composing your shot, pointing it in the right direction, getting your settings just right, and getting close enough to a surfer to get the detail without getting in their way, and the 101 other things which come with experience when you're shooting surf photography. So have fun, go out there, grab one of these Samyang fisheyes if you want that really wide angle look. Thanks very much.